On the evening of October 14, 2004, a Bombardier CRJ-200 operated by Pinnacle Airlines was scheduled for a routine repositioning flight from Little Rock, Arkansas to Minneapolis, Minnesota. The flight was empty. No passengers, only 2 crew members. It was a standard ferry operation intended to move the aircraft for its next scheduled flight. Earlier in the day, the plane had experienced mechanical issues that forced a different crew to abort takeoff. The issue was later identified, resolved, and signed off by maintenance. The flight crew that night consisted of 31-year-old Captain Jesse Rhodes and 23-year-old First Officer Peter Caesars. Both were qualified, though relatively new to the aircraft type. The flight plan called for a climb to cruising altitude, followed by a direct route to their destination. However, what unfolded deviated significantly from any standard procedure. After departure at 9:21 p.m., cockpit recordings later revealed that the 2 pilots began engaging in non-essential activities during flight. Among these, they reportedly swapped seats, something that should never happen during active flight operations. They also initiated an aggressive climb, pushing the aircraft to ascend at a rate of 10,000 feet per minute, far beyond the recommended maximum. At 9:35 p.m., they requested and received clearance to climb to 41,000 feet. While this was the certified maximum ceiling for the aircraft, it was not a typical operational altitude, especially for a ferry flight with no passengers. When asked by air traffic control why they had requested such an altitude, the captain replied that they decided to have a little fun, citing the absence of passengers. As the aircraft reached 41,000 feet, the atmospheric conditions made it difficult to maintain lift and airspeed. The plane's stall warning activated, indicating that they were on the verge of losing aerodynamic control. Shortly afterward, both engines flamed out, starved of sufficient airflow in the thin upper atmosphere. From this point forward, the flight was in critical danger. The correct emergency response would have been to pitch the nose downward, increase speed, and attempt to restart the engines. According to the official investigation, the pilots did not follow proper procedures. They failed to regain enough speed to restart the engines, and they did not effectively glide the aircraft to a viable emergency landing location. Moments later, the aircraft crashed into a field near Jefferson City, Missouri. Both crew members were killed on impact. The final report from the National Transportation Safety Board was direct in its findings. The crash resulted from poor judgment, lack of discipline, and a failure to follow established flight procedures. The incident was not caused by mechanical failure, but by a series of critical human errors that left no room for recovery. In Summerville, South Carolina, on the night of July 4, 2024, a neighborhood was gathered in celebration. Independence Day in the United States is often marked by fireworks, gatherings, and community events. That evening, 41-year-old Ellen Ray McGrew, an HVAC technician, was hosting a block party with family, friends, and neighbors. He wore a patriotic costume styled after Uncle Sam, including a tall red, white, and blue top hat. The celebration began in the early evening, and as the sun set, preparations were underway for a firework display. According to witnesses and a report by the New York Post, Ellen had consumed alcohol earlier in the evening and was in high spirits. At approximately 10:20 p.m., he placed a large firework on top of his hat. His wife and others initially believed the act was a joke, that the firework was not lit. However, it had already been ignited. Seconds later, the firework exploded while still positioned on his head. The blast caused immediate and severe trauma. Emergency medical services were called and arrived on scene, but Ellen McGrew was pronounced dead shortly after. The explosion resulted in critical head injuries that left no possibility of survival. His death was ruled accidental, caused by the detonation of an active firework at close range. The incident was one of at least 4 fatal firework-related accidents reported in the U.S. that weekend. Each year, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission records thousands of injuries related to consumer fireworks. In 2024 alone, an estimated 10,000 Americans were treated for such injuries. While most incidents result in burns or minor trauma, some, like this one, end in tragedy. On October 24, 2024, in the forested region of Garkhalay District, India, A 23-year-old electrician named Shriyant Ramchandra Satre lost his life in a situation that was entirely avoidable. Shriyant had been working with two colleagues, laying cables near the edge of a known wildlife zone. It was not uncommon for workers in rural India to share space with nature, including the occasional appearance of elephants. But this particular area came with a warning. A dangerous bull elephant was known to roam there, and it had been recently sighted. This elephant was not unknown to locals. Identified by forest officials as CME3, it was a lone male tusker, an elephant that had separated from its herd. Solitary elephants are often more unpredictable and aggressive than those within a group. CME3, in particular, had a reputation. Over the years, it had been linked to several fatal encounters with humans. Locals and officials alike were urged to avoid the areas where the animal had been seen. Despite these warnings, Shriyant and his colleagues made a decision that would cost him his life. Instead of maintaining a safe distance or halting their work, the three men attempted to find the elephant. They wanted to take a selfie. For reasons that remain unclear, they treated the presence of a wild, unpredictable animal as an opportunity for a photograph. What followed was swift and devastating. As the group approached CME3, the elephant reacted exactly as warned. It charged. The men attempted to flee, but Shriyant was caught. Eyewitnesses later stated that he had raised his phone just moments before the attack. The elephant struck with overwhelming force and trampled him. He died before help could arrive. There was no ambiguity in the outcome. Shriyant had been informed of the risks. He had been told the elephant was dangerous, and yet the desire to capture a photo had overridden all caution. Forest officials who responded to the scene later confirmed the identity of the elephant, noting its history of prior human encounters that had ended similarly. In 2011, a strange trend swept across the internet: planking. The rules were simple: lie face down, arms at your sides, body stiff like a board, and do it in the most unusual place you could find. The photos were shared online, and the more absurd the location, the more attention it brought. It was a harmless fad for many, but for some, the desire to take it to extremes had serious consequences. That May, in the city of Brisbane, Australia, a 20-year-old man named Acton Beale attempted one of these stunts. He had returned to his apartment at Kangaroo Point in the early hours of the morning after a night out drinking with a friend. Around 4:30 a.m., Beale decided to take a planking photo on the narrow railing of his 7th-floor balcony. The railing, only a few inches wide, left no room for error. His friend stood nearby preparing to take the picture. As Acton positioned himself, face down, arms by his side, he lost his balance. Without anything to grip or stabilize his body, he fell. The 7-story drop ended in tragedy. He landed on the concrete below and was pronounced dead at the scene. His death shocked the public and quickly gained national attention. It was one of the first fatal incidents tied directly to the planking craze. In response, Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard issued a public warning, urging young people not to risk their lives for fleeting moments of online recognition. Law enforcement across the country also began cracking down on dangerous planking attempts, particularly those involving high-risk locations. Though the trend would fade in popularity in the following years, Acton's death became a lasting reminder of how quickly a moment of recklessness can turn fatal. A simple photograph meant for fun had turned into an irreversible loss.